Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, addicts of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and resident alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you've joined us today. Well, I have another couple for you. I've decided that I was going to do some episodes where we were going to interview some couples in recovery. This next couple I have for you, I found attending Zoom. So when COVID hit and the outbreak started and all of these recovering addicts were trying to find out a next meeting, the next place to go, Zoom popped in. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to go like all over the United States? So that's what I started doing. I started taking a thumbtack and started going to different states. And I found a place in Bastrop, Texas, that a couple hosted a Friday night meeting, and I started attending this meeting every Friday night. And I loved these people so much that the lady you're going to hear today, Kim, was the speaker at my 5-year medallion Zoom ceremony. And her husband, Randy, newly wedded husband, Randy, is a pretty cool guy himself. But enough about me and enough about my hair. I know, it's a mistake. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the couple. How you guys doing today? Kim and Randy from Texas.
We're doing well, Doug. Thanks for having us.
Oh, man, I'm so blessed you're here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Randy, I heard you drawed the short straw, and you're gonna tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Sure. Okay. First of all, Randy, alcoholic. I have a sobriety date of October 18th, 2010. I'm very grateful for that today. My story starts back when I was about 14, 15 years old. That's when I began drinking alcoholically. I'm the oldest of 6 children, 2 of which are deceased, and both alcohol complicated both of their deaths. It wasn't the main cause, not the primary cause, but it was a part of their ill health, should I say. So being the oldest of 6, I had a lot of responsibilities right from the get-go. There were 4 of us that were basically a year apart. I was mom's little helper, and a lot of responsibility put on me early on in life. And a religious upbringing that I moved away from about that same time that I started drinking alcoholically. It was a good home. Alcohol wasn't, ever really noticeable in our home. My dad kept a few bottles stashed up in a high cupboard in the kitchen just for social occasions. And one night they didn't decide, it was decided for them that they had to go out of town over to Santa Monica. We grew up in the San Fernando Valley in California. And my grandfather was getting ready to pass away. So they decided to leave the other kids in my care. And I decided after I got them to bed that I was going to try some of those adult beverages up there. Always an experimental one. So I took a tall Tupperware tumbler. Many of you probably remember those. Some of you maybe not. And I poured it about a third full of gin, another third full of Jim Beam, and I can't remember what the other one was, but that was the next third. No thought of mixers or any expertise like that in my experience at that time. And I drank that all down that night. My parents got back. I was passed out on the couch. They couldn't figure out what was going on. I don't know that they ever really did until I told them years later. But from that point on, it was pretty much on for me. I won't go into a long drunkalogue because most all of us have heard them or lived them. And the stories are always the same. They're always very, very similar. The pattern of alcoholism, the decay of any morals, absence of honesty, and basically going from a fairly grounded religious education, sliding over to the agnostic side for me. That was my experience. So fast forward the tape, I drank alcoholically for a little over 40 years, to the point where I had to have a drink or I had to have a certain amount of alcohol in me at all times. And I had never seriously entertained the thought of quitting. Might have been a weekend or two here or there where I was just sick from some unrelated thing and that I might have laid back a little bit, but for the most part, it was solid drinking alcoholically for 40 plus years, as I said. I worked for a company that I started with in 1984, just recently retired about this time last year, with 40 years of service for that company. And that job took me all over the country, up into Canada, all over Europe and Asia. It was very responsible, high-level position in the company. We did specialized construction, very highly specialized ironwork construction, and I traveled the world doing that. Never thought I had a problem because I kind of went with the whole crew, you know, that's what we did. We went out after work, we worked hard, we played hard, and that's all I ever saw as I was playing hard. I had a good, responsible job. I did well at it and never had any cause to think that I might have a problem until about 15 years ago. The HR people called me up one day when I happened to be in the office here in Texas and said, "We want to talk to you." And they brought up the fact that they thought that I might have a problem with alcohol and they'd like to help me out with it. By that time, I knew in my soul, in my heart of hearts, that I had a problem. I just did not know what to do about it, how to go about it. Didn't know anything about 12-step programs or Alcoholics Anonymous, and was basically ignorant because I kept myself that way. It was too uncomfortable to face those things. But because of their intervention and their employee assistance program, I was sent to see a counselor. They asked the basic questions to help you figure out if you're an alcoholic, and I lied my ass off through the whole thing. But I got to thinking about it after I left. In my heart, I knew the answers. So that was an awakening. They suggested that I go into an outpatient treatment program. It was 4 hours a night, five nights a week for the next 3 months, I think it was. And that didn't do a lot for me. That my experience found not only alcohol, but other party favors as were available in Southern California in the early mid 70s on through still today, I guess. Those I had managed to put away when I started working internationally. And a lot of the projects I did were government projects, so there were drug screens, that kind of thing. I just didn't want to have to deal with that. I put that away and it gave me a false security thinking, I've got this, I can handle this. I quit those drugs. I can quit the alcohol anytime I want. Truth of the matter was, alcohol was still way easier to get. And I continued with that. So I get to the employee assistance program, get involved in that. And like I say, it really didn't do a lot for me. It talked about the physiology of it. It didn't really give me an avenue to correct or look at my behavior. They also handed me the first big book that I ever had. And it was a paperback version. Many are familiar with it. It said, read the first 164 pages. And after that first meeting that night, I went home and I read that first 164 pages. And then I immediately started over that very same night, reading it again. I read it maybe 3 or 4 times and I connected with lots of it. I didn't understand lots of it, but it struck a chord somewhere inside me. The other requirement of that program was that I go to at least one AA meeting a week. And it was kind of an honor system. I wasn't on paper, as we say in the program, But in typical alcoholic fashion, I put that off to about 2 weeks. Finally went to my first AA meeting ever locally here in what was to become my first home group, and got a sponsor. But I walked into that room, 6'5", 55 years old, strapping iron worker, thought I wasn't afraid of anything, and I was literally shaking in my boots. I was very, very fearful of what I knew I was going to have to do, even though I had no idea what that was. But what I knew, I was going to have to do some things that I probably didn't want to do. And that turned out to be true. I got in there, I was detoxing at that same time because I had quit drinking the week before. So I'm in the middle of the DTs. I'm scared already, and I walk into that room, and there's 5 old gnarly guys sitting in there who I had never seen or met before. They welcomed me with open arms. When they went around the room and they introduced themselves, I, of course, was the last one in that circuit. And I gave the standard reply, "Hi, I'm Randy. I'm an alcoholic, and I need help." And they took me into their arms. They surrounded me. Within 3 days, I had a sponsor. He is still my sponsor to this day. And that man and those other gentlemen saved my life. They showed me how to get through the program. They guided me every step of the way and helped me to get there. They believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I worked the steps closely with my sponsor. We have conversations still 3-4 times a week. In fact, he's over here at meetings usually at least 3 times a week. And we retain that relationship. So is that it?
Pretty much.
Okay, so that's my story in a short form. I will tell you one quick thing.
Oh,
When I first met Kim in my very early sobriety, I saw her in a book study meeting and heard her speak in that book study meeting, and she scared the living hell out of me.
oops.
She was intense. Dougie knows what I mean. So, Kim, why don't you go ahead?
I'll wait for Dougie to tell me what to do.
You're up, Kim.
All right, Dougie. My name is Kim, and I am in long-term sobriety. I have the gift of recovery since January 13th, 1982. I have just celebrated 43 years of clean time, sober time, whatever you want to call it, without mood altering anything. So, where do you start? I grew up in Nebraska. I was one of 6 children. My mom was a single mom. We were raised with her and my stepdad. I had an older sister that would have parties when my mom and him were out of town or, whatever. And I saw what they did. I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to be an adult, and I wasn't, but I sure acted like it. And then I left home when I was 15, and the race was on to kill myself, actually. I didn't know that was what I was doing. I was going out to have a good time, and I didn't want adults telling me what to do. And I proceeded to compromise every moral compass that I had about who I am today. Who I am today is, well, let me just go back just a little smidge. I was introduced to a guy that I got sober with. He was my boyfriend, and I, of course, knew I had a problem. Nobody did what I did and didn't have a problem, but I was good with not dealing with life. And I covered up all those feelings of where I came from, what happened in my childhood, into those outside issues, drinking, or anything else that I could numb my emotions with. And so he was asked to go to treatment. And so I wanted to be the other partner in that, and the other girlfriend or the girlfriend. And they gave me 20 questions. In 82, there were 20 questions. He didn't have to give me a whole bunch of questions to lie on a couple and convince myself that I had a problem. It asked me, did I do things in the morning, drinking or outside issues? And I said, no, but I never got up before 12 o'clock. And that's the truth of the matter. I split hairs. It's real easy to do that even today. I have to really pay attention to the disease that I have that will try to get me to lie, compromise, manipulate, use, and abuse, right? I have to always be on alert to that because my disease is out there trying to kill me, regardless of what good I do. And obviously it wants me to do it even more so because the good that I do or the work that I do in service. I went into treatment. I went into a non-medical treatment that you had to be clean for, I don't know how long, a week or whatever. You went through detox, and it was an inpatient treatment, and it was a 30-day treatment. And I stayed for a little bit longer than that. I had a counselor in there that really saved my life. She's a huge part of my recovery today. She's a huge part of who I am. She told me the truth when I couldn't hear it from anyone. She was my angel. She's still my angel. I moved out and I moved out and went to a 3/4 way house and I built a foundation. They told me if I went home, I'd probably get drunk or use, and I didn't want to do that. Somehow, some way, what their message to me sank, right? All the way down to my toes. And I was able to be honest with myself and say, no, this is not what you want. You really want to be the person that you were intended to be. And you know, as well as I could hear that, but I knew that in my soul. And so I moved into a 3/4 way house after that for 6 months. And then I moved in with a bunch of girls, and then my journey started from there. I grew up in Nebraska, so you know, if you can't get clean there or sober there, then you don't want to get sober. That's just the bottom line. There were only in-person meetings. They smoked at meetings. You cleaned ashtrays. You did all those things, and I learned to do service work that kind of way, as small as that is, and is in all the levels that you can do it, and whatever. And everybody gets a part. Okay. So today, I moved to Texas in 2002. I decided I was going to not live in the cold anymore, and so I could live in the heat. Feast or famine, right? I trade one for the other. And so I moved here, and I really got in the middle of the herd, and I started doing what I call it is correctional work. I take message behind the walls. It's a big deal to me. A lot of people don't like to do it, and they're afraid they might stay. You just have to go there with no wants or warrants, and then you don't have to worry about that. But it's just the solidifying factor of me going was I have a sister that died of an overdose, and the first time I went to a state facility, you tell your story. You get more time than this, of course, and at the end you ask them questions, or they can ask you questions. And the goal in that is that I needed to make sure that my higher power was going to sing to my soul. I needed to make sure I was on the right track and doing the right things for the right reasons. And I asked him, that was a deal breaker. If this is not what you want me to do, make it real clear. And the first girl that asked the question was my sister's name. And it was assured to me in that moment that that's exactly what I needed to do. And I've just always gone. I go now 3 times a month. I do as much work in that field as I can possibly get. I work on relationships. Relationships are a thing for me, but I think that my higher power has brought me to a relationship and a marriage today that is about communication or whatever it needs to be, and it's important. I believe that we all get gifts, and we should share them with the world because they're not for us to keep; they're for us to give away. And it's easy for me. It wasn't hard for me to be sober. I've made a lot of wrong moves in being sober all this time, but I also was 20 when I got here, and you know, and most people, you know, they make those mistakes otherwise. I can make them sober and clean. It doesn't really matter. But I don't drink no matter what, and he takes care of the what's, and that's the bottom line of that. But I think in a nutshell, Dougie, I think that that's what you got from me today. And it's like a bull riding, 8 minutes or less, right? Isn't that what 8 minutes are? Bull riding?
8 seconds.
I love that.
Okay, second. Well, it
no,
felt like,
yeah,
8 seconds.
I love that. You know, I kind of want to go back to what Randy was talking about, you know, about when he met you the first time. For the people at home, like that don't know, like, you know, how this recovery thing works, or like how do you get involved with another person in recovery? How did Kim and Randy mold where they are right now? You know, so tell me a little bit about that.
Who would you like to answer that question first? Yeah.
Maybe. Well, you know what?
And then what your perception is, Dougie. That's what it is.
We heard Randy say something about he met you at a meeting. Kim,
Yeah.
you tell me how you guys met.
I was asked to bring a topic on a step. I think it was step 11, and because it was about listening and talking to a higher power. And I just tell it like it is. You know, my thing of it is that you're going to die anyway. You might as well tell it. I'm a rip the Band-Aid off kind of girl. I think that that's what I know. And then what also, I've met him doing service work throughout our time together. I've always not been shy about asking you, hey, will you sign up for this, or will you do this, or will you do that? And he's always been willing to do that. He sticks his toe in it and sees what that looks like for him, and then he continues or he doesn't. But that's it. That's what I got.
Randy, were you nervous?
No, I think I wasn't really nervous. She caught my attention in that very first meeting. I was actually there with another girl in the program. We had kind of teamed up going to different meetings in our area, instead of just our home group all the time. And I just noticed the intensity and the passion she had for the subject matter. And as time went by, like Kim said, we worked on several local conference planning committees together, got to know each other a little more. She's the first one that got me to go into the jails. And it just kind of evolved of its own volition. I say that she was stalking me, but I just say that to get a laugh out of her.
I did not stalk him.
But it kind of evolved, you know. We would go to meetings together, and then we'd go to the Dairy Queen afterwards because this girl loves ice cream.
Yep.
And who doesn't love ice cream? But I gotta know, because some people who aren't like us wanted me to ask a question. So, like, what is an everyday of Kim and Randy look like? And they wanted to know, like, you know, without like the booze and the drugs and all that stuff. And I said, it looks exactly like your life, just without the booze and the drugs. You know, so like what does an everyday life of Kim and Randy look like?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I think you hit
Well,
the
he's
nail on the
retired
head.
first, so
Right.
he sleeps in.
Okay.
That's the first thing.
Sleeping in for me is like, don't get up until 5:30 or so. It's like any other day. When I was still working, I worked from home the last few years. Kim worked from home throughout COVID, and the two spare rooms in the house, we separated into an office for her and an office for me. So you know, we never closed the doors. We've always been transparent with each other. Things are open. And I like to share, sometimes in meetings, I'll share, you know, when you walk through the front door of this house, you can trip over service work because it's always going on in this house.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's big in your guys' life. Like Brandy, I heard when you're talking about Roy, I don't know if it was just me, but I could hear in your voice you were getting a little bit emotional. And then Kim, like I know that you talked about the prison system going in the walls and stuff. Service is huge to you guys. Share with us really quick, like why you love to do service so much.
Not for me to keep, it's for me to give away, period, the end. And
Mhm.
I give it away and they think that it's wonderful that I do that. But in the end, I sleep better at night. It's doing my higher power, God of my understanding's work that I was supposed to. I didn't go through all that I went through to keep it. I was supposed to go and share those experiences with other people. And that's just it.
Right.
and for me, it's an obligation I owe to those that come after me to carry out the work that was given to me, because it truly was given to me. It was the grace of a higher power that kept me in there. Otherwise, I'm basically lazy. I wouldn't have done it. So
Yeah. Well, I really super duper appreciate you guys coming and doing some service work with me today. And I love you guys. I can't wait to get out there to Texas to give you guys each a big hug. And I'm so blessed today that you guys were able to come on Canadian Sobre and bring a little bit of Texas and warm weather to some cold folks here in Canada. And I'll see you guys on a Friday night, probably this Friday.
Hey, thank
great.
you, Dougie.
Love to see you, Doug.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks
bye.
everybody for joining us on Canadian Sobre. Thank you, Kim and Randy. We'll see you guys next week on another amazing episode. See you till then. Bye.